ho, Russia! Red ho, Russia! Red ho, Russia!
Hi, I'm William Thomas.
And I'm Edward Hudgins.
And this is an Atlas Society State of the Culture Update. And today we're talking about the perils of people power.
Now, by people power, I assume that you mean the folks in the Ukraine who rose up and overthrew their pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych.
Well, exactly. People like that. Or, I mean, maybe the Thais who've been protesting against Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra. Or another example is the Egyptians who protested to get rid of the dictator Hosni Mubarak and then demonstrated again to get rid of Mohammed Morsi, who was the Muslim Brotherhood supporter who was democratically elected after the revolution there.
Yeah, now look, here are the hypothetical questions, okay? What kind of perils do you have with people power? I mean, isn't it a good thing that people are rising up against oppressive regimes and winning? Isn't it a good thing that people who favor Western values are rising up against those who don't, and they're winning? Where's the problem?
Well, there's a couple problems. One big problem is that popular revolution has become the main way of seeking power for some groups in some of these countries. In Thailand, the anti-Shinawatra protesters turn out every time they lose an election. But the Shinawatras win as fairly as anyone does in Thailand. And in Egypt, they protested for democracy, which in effect allowed Morsi to be elected. And then they protested against Morsi, which had the effect that the army could take back over. But they don't seem to be able to win elections. They just protest whenever they want to change the government or do anything. And in Ukraine, it's about the same thing. Whenever they want pro-Western policies, they go and protest. And so when the democratically elected Russian-leaning president acts, well, Russian-leaning, they protested again and managed to oust him. So the peril is that people power is going to be the habitual means of trying to get power for some of these groups. And then there's the underlying problem that their revolutions are setting the revolutionaries up for failure. The protesters in all these countries are generally people who say they want democracy. But majority rule voting in these countries, all elected people the protesters don't like. And because they haven't put clear limits on the power of government, democracy itself does very little to achieve the more open, more westernized society that the protesters in all three of these countries really favor.
Look, of course, rather than promote democracy as an end in itself, those who oppose oppressive regimes should promote individual liberty along with checks and balances on government. I mean, that way, if bad guys are elected, they're going to be able to do less damage. But look, the real problem here is cultural. No political reforms are going to change the fact that too many people in these countries either believe populist promises, or they hold irrational religious beliefs, or they're racists, or they give their loyalty first and foremost to some ethnic group. So in addition to placing their hopes in political revolution, those people who favor more open and tolerant society need to work to change the minds of their fellow countrymen. They need to focus less on taking power and more on promoting reason, the moral right to pursue their own happiness as individuals, and the value of living by trade. In other words, they need to promote the ideals of the Enlightenment, not just the politics of Western democracy.
Well, I agree completely, Ed, of course. Without a culture based in reason and based in appreciation for the individual, even a free country can end up a basket case. I mean, that's the terrible fate of the U.S. in Ayn Rand's novel Atlas Shrugged, and we've seen it for real in places like Argentina and Germany in the last century, too.
And we're starting to see it in the United States today.
Yeah, for real. So we need a rational culture more than we need any particular political reform, because that rational culture is the base of a rational politics. But still, limited government is better than unlimited democracy, even if the culture underneath it still has room to improve. This has been an Atlas Society State of the Culture Update. We thank you for checking in with us.